talk about results. Hey guys, it's Dave, and today I want to talk a little bit about how to measure your results and then how to modify things to maybe get through a plateau or get yourself some better results if you're not where you want to be. So the first thing is how not to measure your results if you're doing a program like P90X or Insanity. A lot of people use the scale as the primary benchmark for their results. It's really a big mistake, and here's why. This happens especially with P90X, maybe a little bit more so than it does with Insanity. What happens with P90X though is most people lose a lot of weight early. These are people who have a lot of weight to lose, 30 to 50 pounds. They tend to lose that weight very quickly, and then they start to build muscle and burn fat. And sometimes that happens at an almost equal rate. So the scale doesn't measure body composition. In other words, it doesn't tell you what your body fat percentage is. All it really tells you is how much you weigh. So another way of thinking about this is to do it by example. So one of the things I always tell people is to take an example of me and Tony Horton. Now I'm about 5'9", and I weigh about 162 pounds. That's where I want to be. I'm a cyclist, and total weight is really important for me. Tony is about the same height, but Tony weighs closer to 180. Now, anybody looking at the two of us would say, certainly Tony is not fatter than I am, even though he weighs about 20 pounds more. It's pretty clear that 20 pounds is muscle. So if we were to stand on a scale though, that was the only barometer we were using to measure our results, you might look at that extra 20 pounds and be a little deceived by that. So it's important to understand what the scale is measuring and what it is not measuring. So while weight loss may be your goal, the scale may not be the best place to assess it. What is a good way to assess things? It's a couple different things. First thing, pictures, great way to really see where you've been and where you are. Measurements is even more accurate. Why? Because what happens when you burn fat and build muscle, even if it's at a simultaneous weight, is that your body may maintain a static weight, but it will shrink because muscle is much more dense than fat. Those are two good ones. Another really good one that's often overlooked is performance. And that's really, I think, one of the things where I judge how things are going in my training. My training is effective. So my total weight very rarely changes. I've been between 160 and 165 for about 2 years now. But what does change is my performance. So what do I mean by that? Well, if I'm doing strength training, how many push-ups can I do? How many pull-ups can I do? How do I feel after I've done those reps? If I'm cycling or running, how are my times? How do I feel? What's my perceived exertion? I use a heart rate monitor so that I can track those things. So I can say, okay, well, maybe 3 months ago, 170 heart rate, 170 beats per minute, was really pressing it for me. Now I seem to be able to stay at 170 for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. Well, I know that's a good indicator for me that my performance has gone up. My weight hasn't changed at all. And maybe my physical body, if I would look at pictures or take measurements, that hasn't changed much at all. But my performance has increased dramatically, and that's actually what happened to me last year. Pretty close to that. 170 was a real threshold for me where I wasn't able to maintain that for any sustainable time. In other words, I went anaerobic and started to burn through the sugars in my body and the glycogen in my muscles. I got to the point now where 170 to 175 is a pretty comfortable heart rate for me. If I get up above 175 into low 180s, that's definitely pressing for me. But that's a real indicator for me that I'm doing something good in my training because my performance is increasing. So if that is something that you're starting to see, in other words, your weight isn't changing, take a look at these different things. Has your body changed? Maybe you've just moved weight. This happened for me. I went from a whole lot of weight around my gut to more weight around my shoulders and chest. Moving things, right? So that's a good thing to have, not a bad thing. So don't be tricked by the scale. Look at some other indicators, and don't forget about performance. Look at performance. Where are you now versus when you started? Where are you now versus a couple of weeks ago or a month ago? If you're like me and you set up, this is a month-long training block that Monica put together, and that's what I do. I do my training blocks in months, and so what I'm looking at is I'm trying to assess my performance and figure out where do I need to get better. Is it a heart rate issue? Do I need more cardiovascular performance, or do I need to get stronger? Do I need to work on my leg power, my upper body power, whatever it may be? So keep those things in mind. Use those performance indicators and pictures and measurements and all that other stuff. And you know what? Throw the scale away because it's a big liar. Have a good day, guys.